In a landscape where gaming companies guard their secrets like treasure, it's rare to see so much crucial information slip through the cracks. But this time, it's massive. Not only have prototype images of the Nintendo Switch 2 leaked, but we've also got details on the exact tech it's packing, its rumored price, performance capabilities, and even a potential release window. And, after what felt like forever, Nintendo finally took legal action against the creators of Palworld, the controversial Pokémon-style game that raised eyebrows for blending cuddly creatures with guns. Why the delay? We're diving into all of it. And later in the video, I will show you just how evil Nintendo can be. And I'm not exaggerating. Let's start with Palworld. Alright, let's dive into the legal drama surrounding Palworld and Nintendo. On Wednesday, September 18th, Nintendo and the Pokémon company TPC filed a lawsuit in Tokyo against Pocketpair, the developers behind Palworld. If you haven't heard of Palworld yet, it's often referred to by fans as Pokémon with Guns, a survival adventure game where players can capture and battle over 100 unique creatures called pals, much like the core concept of Pokémon. But Palworld takes a darker twist, letting players equip these adorable pals with weapons and drop them into battles that, well, definitely aren't PG. The lawsuit is a pretty big deal because Nintendo is accusing Pocketpair of patent infringement. According to Nintendo's statement released the following day, they're seeking an injunction to stop Pocketpair from continuing to violate their patents and are also going after them for damages. While the exact patents weren't named, it's clear that Nintendo and TPC believe Palworld crossed a line. They're known for being fiercely protective of their IP, especially anything related to Pokémon. What's interesting here is that Pocketpair seems to be just as surprised by this lawsuit as the rest of us. In their response, they said they don't even know what specific patents they're accused of violating, and haven't been informed of any details yet. This is where it gets tricky. Nintendo isn't necessarily targeting the superficial similarities between Palworld's pals and Pokémon, even though some of them do look suspiciously alike. It could be more about game mechanics or other intellectual property under the hood that Pocketpair accidentally infringed on. But from Pocketpair's perspective, it's like they got blindsided by this lawsuit. Palworld has been a hit since its release in January, moving over 10 million copies and smashing Steam player records. With that kind of visibility, it was only a matter of time before Nintendo stepped in. Fans instantly noticed the uncanny resemblance between some of the pals in Palworld and well-known Pokémon. Take Palworld's lamb-like creature, Lamball, which looks a lot like Pokémon's Wooloo. However, this lawsuit isn't about the character designs being too close. It's about multiple undisclosed patents, which leaves a lot of speculation open on what exactly Nintendo is focusing on. It could involve how Palworld's monsters are caught, the battle system, or even something more technical under the surface of the game's mechanics. This lawsuit also has some history behind it. Nintendo and TPC have been watching Palworld since its early days. Shortly after its release, TPC had already taken action when a programmer uploaded a mod of Palworld that replaced all the pals with Pokémon, forcing them to take it down. At the time, TPC issued statements saying they were investigating potential IP infringements, though they didn't directly name Palworld. Now it seems like they've found enough evidence to officially go after Pocketpair in court. So why did it take Nintendo so long to sue? Well, it's possible they were meticulously building their case. Nintendo doesn't go after these things lightly. They're known to take their time and make sure everything is airtight before filing lawsuits. They probably needed time to thoroughly investigate what parts of Palworld were infringing on their patents, especially if it goes deeper than just character designs. One theory behind the timing of Nintendo's lawsuit against Palworld developer Pocketpair could be that they were wrapped up in another legal battle that just concluded. Just last week, Nintendo won a major lawsuit against the makers of the popular Switch emulator Yuzu, securing a $2.4 million settlement. Tropic Haze, the company behind Yuzu, had been accused of copyright infringement and circumventing Nintendo's protection technologies, allowing users to play games like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom before their official release. Nintendo has always been notorious for its fierce defense of intellectual property, and this lawsuit was no different. The Yuzu emulator let players run Switch games on their PCs and even mobile devices. This included millions of people playing leaked versions of Tears of the Kingdom before its release. While Yuzu doesn't directly offer pirated games, Nintendo targeted them because their software was seen as a gateway for piracy, especially since they made it possible to play leaked copies of their biggest titles. The company's stance is clear. Anything that enables piracy or circumvents their hardware protections is in their legal crosshairs. As part of the settlement, Tropic Haze agreed to shut down Yuzu entirely, pulling all related content offline, including their Patreon, website, and GitHub repositories. One of the emulator's creators, Bunai, released a statement on Discord expressing that while piracy was never their intention, they now see the impact their software had in enabling it. The entire Yuzu operation, along with Citra, their Nintendo 3DS emulator, has been taken down, marking a huge victory for Nintendo. Nintendo's success against Yuzu once again sparked debate over emulation and whether it's inherently illegal. Emulation fans argue that tools like Yuzu are vital for preserving video games, allowing people to continue playing titles long after official support ends. However, Nintendo sees it differently, especially when these tools enable piracy and undermine their business. So, did the conclusion of this major lawsuit free up Nintendo's legal team to finally go after Pocketpair and Palworld? It's possible. Wrapping up the Yuzu case, where they took down an entire operation responsible for millions of leaked game copies, might have opened the door for them to refocus their attention on other potential IP threats. After all, Nintendo's legal division is a well-oiled machine, and once they finish one fight, they're quick to move on to the next. If you really want to understand how truly relentless and, some would argue, downright brutal Nintendo can be when it comes to protecting their IP, then you need to check out this website, suedbynintendo.com. It's a deep rabbit hole of lawsuits that Nintendo has filed, giving you a glimpse into the company's legal gymnastics. While most companies do their best to avoid lawsuits, Nintendo seems to embrace them with open arms, targeting anyone from large corporations to individual YouTubers and streamers. Their copyright strikes are legendary, and they happen a lot. It's impossible to cover everything here because the list is ridiculously long. But let's zoom in on just one example of how aggressive they can be. Ahead of the worldwide release of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, players in regions like Australia and Japan got access to the game about 12 hours earlier than other parts of the world. Pretty standard stuff in gaming. Different regions have staggered release times, and players who know the drill often create foreign accounts to snag the game early. But what did Nintendo do? They hit multiple streamers with bans and copyright takedowns just for playing the game early. Even though it was officially out in parts of the world, Nintendo wasn't having it. Take Linkus7, a professional speedrunner and streamer. He got hit with a 48-hour ban from Twitch for streaming Age of Calamity. Another streamer, Reversal, also got banned mid-stream, even though he was using an EU Switch account to access the game. And it wasn't just Western streamers. Japanese and Korean streamers got hit too, despite Age of Calamity being officially available in their regions. This mess looked like some automated takedown system running wild, but Nintendo didn't exactly rush to apologize or clear things up. This wasn't the first time something like this happened either. It's practically a routine with every major Nintendo release. Back when Animal Crossing New Horizons and Pokémon Sword and Shield came out, streamers ran into the same kind of legal hammer. Nintendo has a well-earned reputation for going hard on copyright claims, even when it feels like the situation doesn't warrant it. The frustrating part is, even when players are technically following the rules, like downloading a game that's legally out in certain regions, Nintendo's takedowns often feel like overkill. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you scroll through suedbynintendo.com, you'll find cases of ROM sites being dismantled, hackers facing huge financial penalties, and individual YouTubers getting hit with strikes for simply using Nintendo footage in their videos. Nintendo has even gone after fan-made games and mods that don't directly compete with their titles, but might feature characters or themes too close to the originals. Here's a wild one. Back in 2015, Nintendo launched something, the Nintendo Creators Program. And it basically said, sure, you can put your gameplay on YouTube, but we're taking a cut of your earnings. This was during a time when Let's Play videos, walkthroughs, live streaming were blowing up. And many content creators were making solid money by showcasing their skills, or just goofing around with games. Nintendo decided they wanted in on that money too. The program forced creators to sign up and agree to share a percentage of their YouTube ad revenue with Nintendo, or risk getting their videos taken down with copyright strikes. Yeah, it didn't go over well. Most people saw it as a greedy move, especially when other big gaming companies were letting YouTubers and streamers show off their games for free. Recognizing the value of this kind of free advertising, Let's Plays and streams often boost game sales. People see a game in action, get hyped, and go buy it themselves. But Nintendo didn't seem to get that. They saw people making money off their games and wanted a piece of the pie. The backlash was instant. Content creators hated it, especially smaller channels that couldn't afford to lose ad revenue. Bigger names in the gaming world spoke out against it too. It seemed like Nintendo was completely out of touch with how modern media and fan communities worked. The backlash got so loud that by 2018, Nintendo quietly killed the program. Now they have more relaxed guidelines allowing people to upload gameplay videos, but that whole fiasco left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It's almost like Nintendo doesn't want free advertising. Japan does have strict copyright laws, but they're a little different from how things work in the US. In Japan, intellectual property is protected heavily, and companies like Nintendo take a very conservative approach to how their content is used. It's less about the gray area of fair use that exists in the West, and more about companies having the final say over their IP, no matter what. So in that sense, what Nintendo did with their Creators Program was kind of in line with Japan's broader culture of protecting intellectual property at all costs. Okay, so, everything about the Nintendo Switch 2 pretty much leaked. Actual photos and specs. I don't know if it's the final version, but the prototype stuff got out. The new console's got this chip, the GMLX30-R-A1 or something. So it's like a combination CPU and GPU, which should mean it's going to be more powerful for games, you know? It also has 12 gigs of memory, specifically 2 sticks of 6 gigabytes, which is fast as heck compared to the current Switch. To put it in perspective, the OG Switch had only 4, and while that worked for most games, some third-party titles struggled, especially larger ones like The Witcher 3. With this 12 gigs, games are going to load faster, handle more assets, and offer smoother performance overall. It also opens the door for more complex games to run on the system, or for existing games to run at higher settings without frame rate drops. The original Switch only had 32 gigabytes of internal storage, and later, 64 gigabytes with the OLED model. 256 gigabytes on the Switch 2 is a huge upgrade, though 4K textures and bigger game installs could eat through that faster than we think. But I don't think we'll have 4K textures anyway. Still, you won't need to rely on micro SD cards right away. And with that 2,100 megabytes per second transfer speed, loading times are going to be snappier, especially compared to the slower storage. But I'd still would have liked to get at least 512 gigabytes storage in there. But if it's gonna be a full HD machine and not a 4K, it'll probably do just fine. Now, let's talk display. The original Switch has a 6.2-inch screen, which got bumped up to 7 inches with the OLED model. The Switch 2's 8-inch display would be the biggest yet. And it's not just the size. That 120Hz refresh rate is a big deal. The current Switch is capped at 60, so doubling the refresh rate could mean much smoother gameplay, especially for faster-paced games like shooters or action titles. If they support 120 frames per second gameplay on some titles, that's a major step up, even if most games won't hit that. More information on the new Nintendo console may also have come from a new report by the Taiwan Economic Daily. The report reveals that the new system will be larger than its predecessor, featuring better battery life, likely NVIDIA's DLSS support, and a dual-screen design. The console's price is estimated to be $400, which is an increase over the launch price of the original Switch, but still a reasonable increase compared to the PlayStation 5 Pro price. As for the console's reveal, it is reported that it has been moved in response to the PS5 Pro announcement, but it will still come within the end of the calendar year. The cooling system seems to be getting a serious upgrade too, with dual fans and a copper heatsink. If you've used the original Switch, you know it can get pretty toasty, especially when docked or running demanding games like Breath of the Wild. Better cooling not only means better performance, but also more comfort during long handheld sessions. The Joy-Cons are still here, but they've got a new magnetic slide rail system. That's interesting because it hints at a more secure connection, or maybe even new functionality, like haptic feedback improvements. In terms of raw capabilities, it's safe to predict that the Switch 2 will be able to handle 4K output when docked, thanks to HDMI 2.1 support and more powerful internals. The original Switch could only do 1080p docked and 720p in handheld mode. So, while we might not see 4K in handheld mode, 8-inch screens don't really need that. 4K on a TV? I doubt that too. But again, it depends on the game and what solution they will use. But if they market this machine as a 4K docked mode, take it with a big bucket of salt. Battery life wasn't mentioned in the leak, but with these kinds of power upgrades, it's going to be crucial that they improve it. The original Switch's battery could last anywhere from 2.5 to 6 hours depending on the game, but if the Switch 2 is pushing out higher frame rates and bigger resolutions, battery life could suffer if they don't pack a bigger or more efficient battery in there. The Nintendo Switch 2 console has entered full production, and the unofficial name that has been used so far for the system may be the official one, according to rumors circulating online. As reported on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, a FamiBoard user called FWDBWD shared new information discovered on a Chinese forum from a supposed line worker regarding the console. This Chinese user revealed that the system has begun production, with a quota of 1,000 units a day per worker.